Hi everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Well, today what I'm getting up to is setting up the flower stand, mainly with tulips. I think we'll pretty much just set up with tulips today. And I just wanted to give you a look at how things are looking right now, how my seedlings are doing, some tulips and daffodils that are blooming. A lot of things actually blew open over the weekend because we got so hot so quickly that I kind of missed a wave of flowers. There's some things that are right now they need to be harvested. And then there's some things that hopefully I'll be able to harvest them tomorrow morning before we have another kind of torrential rainfall come through. And that's kind of always the way I'm working here in South Central Pennsylvania. I just try to watch the weather like a hawk and take into consideration these huge temperature fluctuations that we get this time of year and also the large amount of rain that we get. So why don't we start by just taking a look around the garden. I also want to point out just how awesome the things that are doing that I planted in the fall. And we can once again take a look at things that I planted in the fall versus the spring, because to me, I feel like this year, this is my 4th year with cool flowers. I'm going to really even try to push the limit even more with fall sowing. Things that are even listed as hardy in zone 7, I'm just going to try them all as a fall planting because they just always outperform my spring planted hardy annuals. So let's take a look around and then we'll just set up the stand together. So I guess we can just start here at the main flower walk, and then we can check out the driveway garden too, because I think a lot has changed over there since I showed you last. So come on in, you're more than welcome here. So as we walk in, you can see I've cut my sage back and I have these really beautiful daffodils here. This variety is called Silver Smiles. Now guys, they're a little bit dirty because of the rain that I told you about. But these are working out really great in arrangements. This is the first year that I've ever grown this variety, and I'm really happy with it. I hope it naturalizes well here. So we'll see about that. Now moving along, you can see some bleeding heart there in the background. Bleeding heart is really great if you like cut flowers, but you have shade. You might want to think about things like bleeding heart, a still bee, Solomon seal is great. I'm thinking about putting together a video on cut flowers for shade. Let me know if that would be helpful. Here I've got some larkspur, and you'll see larkspur all throughout the garden. That's fall sown larkspur. Sorry I don't have things mulched up for you guys, but that's really on purpose because I don't really mulch an area until it's fully planted. And since I grow pretty much everything from seed, especially April is really a work in progress garden. So as we go this way, you can see the feverfew there is really starting to boom, fall sown feverfew. The serviceberry is looking great. It was really in full flower just maybe 2 days ago, and you can see it's already leafing out. Here I have some exotic emperor from another year. In my experience, exotic emperor comes back really well and reliably. And if you want to cut that, you want to just leave a few leaves there so that it can still feed the bulb. And I did a video on that before. I'll link it below if you want to take a look at how to harvest tulips depending on whether or not you want them to come back next year. So that's exotic emperor from a couple years ago. Here's the exotic emperor that we're going to be harvesting today for the stand, because that's a little bit too open for the stand. So exotic emperor is fancy, and I really want it to look like this is fine, this is good, this is really how I want it to look harvest wise for my purposes of selling at a farm stand. Sometimes too, selling at a farm stand, you almost have to pick it a little more open than you would like to. You know that you're kind of decreasing the vase life in a way, but sometimes it's hard, I think, for a customer to know what it's going to look like at the end of the day. And so sometimes I'll pick things for the stand a little more open than I would. Certainly if I was selling to a florist, I would pick it tighter. This area here is mainly all parrot tulips, and none of these are ready to be harvested yet. Here I have the Black Knight Scabiosa. I put in about 40 of these, I guess. And they're looking great. We're still dipping down into the 30s. We've had some nights 28, one night 24, which is the main night that started to worry me. But everything was fine except one area where I had snapdragons. That was the only thing that didn't take that 24 degrees well. Here we have some yellow pomponette and red Miranda that aren't really ready to be harvested yet. But you know, the crazy thing is about tulips is if the sun comes out today and it gets warm, these can go from this to ready to be harvested by the end of the day. So it could be that I harvest this morning, I come back out this evening and harvest again. Here's some Ceranth. Ceranth is really beautiful. I'll put a picture of it on the screen. I winter sowed these Ceranth just as a trial because I'm not really sure how they're going to fare at the stand. I've used them in arrangements before for specialty events, but never at the stand because they're a little bit harder to hydrate. So we'll see how that goes. You can see I have some alliums coming up here. These tulips are Orange Emperor. These are always the first tulip to bloom in my garden, and these are just for landscape purposes. I don't sell any of these. And back behind those, I have some more daffodils, which haven't really started to open yet. I think I have Cheerfulness, and I have another one. I can't remember what it is. I need to look that up. Now over here on the other side, we have more tulips. I have kind of a purple mix, which is really not up yet. Oh, I also have Foxy Foxtrot in here. I think we have Foxy Foxtrot right here. It's kind of a pretty, like a buttery yellow with almost orange in it. More daffodils in there that are later. This area looks really silly because I haven't planted anything in there yet. Here I divided a whole bunch of catmint and put it here, and I just need to re-edge this bed. And here I have my yarrow. And look, somebody's been digging, dug a hole right next to that yarrow. See, squirrels. That is who did that. So we've got Dutch Masters kind of scattered about. Here's some more tulips that we are going to harvest this morning. So this is how I like the yellow Miranda to look. And I feel confident that a customer will still see that from the road and want to buy it, but also that it's not too blown open that it's only going to give them a few days in the vase. So really, that's what I'm looking for in terms of a peony type tulip. And I think we can pretty much harvest probably 50% of these. More Dutch Master. Here's an area of Solomon Seal coming up. Like I said, Solomon Seal is really great if you need a filler that can grow in the shade. And it's really beautiful. Do you guys want to do a check on the ranunculus bed? Well, guess what? It's full of weeds. But I'm going to get out here after we harvest and get the hoe out. But everybody's looking good. You can see I've taken the frost cloth off everything now. Yeah, looking good. And this next bed I have tulips that are for the nursing home. These are all Triumph tulips, different kinds of pinks and whites if I remember correctly. So we can see their heads in there. And so I'll definitely include you when I go ahead and pull these and harvest these, because I even did a video which I've been holding over where I talk about how to protect these from squirrels. The Love in the Mist is looking good, or Love in a Mist rather. Back here I have a daffodil which I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Is it Tete? I don't know. Could somebody give me some pronunciation clarification? But they're beautiful, just little guys. This I did as a lasagna bulb planting where you plant tulips low and daffodils high. And so you can see there's tulips in here. now starting to come up. So my hope is as these daffodils fade, the tulips will take over. The lilac is looking pretty good. So I don't think that I showed you these yet. I can't remember. But these are dianthus that I put out. They're looking great. Here's the orlea right next to it. So orlea right there. Look, these squirrels. See, I think they just, they bury things and then sometimes they expose the root system. So I might have to get some bird netting out here to try and discourage them. But I think here is a good example. So here's spring planted orlea. This took temperatures down to 24 degrees. I didn't cover them or anything like that. And they're doing fine, but they're still adjusting to being out here. Now, on the other hand, let's take a look at some Dara that was fall planted. Right next to it, same thing. Now, this has been out here all winter long. And if you follow my channel, you know the amount of snow, ice, and just really extreme temperatures that we get. And look how much farther along it is than that orlea. So this year, this fall, I'm going to plant orlea in the fall too. Because why not? Why not try? Seed is not that expensive. And just look at the difference. And really, if you looked at this in winter, you might have thought it was dead. But it's fine. In fact, it's not just fine. It's thriving, right? So I'm over here in the driveway garden now, and we can see some beautiful hyacinths. These are a blend called Moonbeam Mix, and then I also have some double daffodils over here, and I believe these are called Replete. In my farm journal, I just have them listed as double pink, so let me know if you think there's something other than Replete. But for now, let's get to harvesting. All right, guys, well, I've got some of the exotic emperor harvested already, and just look at the amazing stem length on these guys. Now, for my purposes here, I pretty much grow all the flowers that you see for the purpose of selling them at our farm stand. And tulips in particular, I treat as an annual crop. I consider them once and done. I plant the bulb, they come up, I harvest the whole thing, and then I need to buy new stock the following season. And this is really for a couple reasons. A lot of varieties don't come back reliably, and also I'm basically removing everything that the bulb needs to produce another flower for next year. So because of the way I harvest these, that bulb doesn't have anything to basically feed it for the following season. And so here's how I go about harvesting for the purpose of selling them as cut flowers. So I'm not going to store these, so I don't need to have the bulb attached. But if I was going to store them, I would want to go ahead and get the bulb out also, because the bulb is what feeds the flower during the storage period. But we're going to sell these today, so my purpose is to just get the longest stem length possible. So I'll try to do a close-up of this too, guys, but I just go all the way down to the base of the plant. I put my thumb down to the earth, grab the very base of the plant, and then pull up. And we're going to get a lot more stem length by doing this. Awesome. So see, all of this was buried underground. So if I would have cut it, right, I would have had a much shorter stem to sell. Now, I'm not sure that my farm stand customers really, what's the right way to say it? I'm not sure if they really appreciate it quite as much as a florist would, but I still like to do it this way and give them the longest stem length possible. And we'll go ahead inside and wash these after harvesting. So yeah, let me give you a close-up of that. And then from here on in, we are just going to harvest. Well guys, now the sun is out and I wish I would have got this process started a little bit earlier. You can see the difference from when we walked around about a half hour ago to now. They've already started to kind of blow open, but they still look okay. There is one that probably I won't bother to sell. Let me pull it and show you. This one is really just so fully open and so blown open that I'll probably just put it at the kitchen counter and I'll enjoy it. But these other ones look good. I find that these colors, even though maybe I'm not particularly partial to them, they sell really well at the stand. And I have a theory behind that. And I'm basing this theory on myself just driving by our home and stand, is that these kind of bright colors stand out and really draw people's eye in. There was one year that I tried to grow a lot of colors that are better for weddings, things like those dark burgundies, just a lot of the dark, more like moody colors. And they were so beautiful and more expensive to grow. But you know what? When I put them at the stand, I noticed that they just weren't selling as good. And I think it's because you just couldn't see them from the road. I mean, you figure people are passing by really quickly. They have just like a second to see that you're selling flowers. And if all the flowers are really dark, they almost like blend into the background, if that makes sense. So I feel like putting in things like yellows, whites, pinks, it's just easier to see from the road. That's just a little theory I have. I don't know, let me know if you think that's a crazy theory or not, but it does seem to make a difference. All right, so you know what? I think I'm gonna pull all of these. The other great thing about harvesting tulips like this, even though it might be heartbreaking to think of a tulip as an annual, I can immediately plant this area. I have a whole bunch of lilies that are going to be arriving tomorrow. I'm going to just amend this area really quickly, add a little bit of compost, and then I can immediately plant my lilies here. So I think when you think about that, it kind of takes the heartbreak away from the fact that they are kind of a one and done bulb when you're growing tulips as a cut flower. All right, guys, well, now we can really have some fun. I've started to process the tulips, and you know, I really love tulips because they're so easy to process. I just use their own foliage, so it makes it just so quick and easy to harvest these guys, wash them, condition them, and get them out to the stand. So let me show you how I go about doing that. I always use just old sauce jars at my stand. I used to buy mason jars and sell in those, the bigger ones. I guess they were maybe quart jars that I was buying. They were costing me probably between 80 cents and $1, depending on where I was getting them from. That just cuts into my cost way too much and takes way too much profit away from me, especially when we're talking about tulips. You know, a tulip bulb is expensive, especially when you're buying some of these fancy peony type bulbs. I really need to keep my costs down as low as possible, and also my time and labor down as much as possible. So all I do is collect jars all year long. I have family and friends that collect for me also, and so that really saves me $1 per purchase, if you will. So I just fill up the jar with fresh clean water, For tulips, I do add flower food into the arrangement for my customer. And then to process the tulip, all you really do is wash it and recut it and let it sit a while. So like you can see, you know, we pulled them out of the ground. They're very dirty, so I wouldn't want to just stick it in the water like that. So I'm just going to wash it off for my customer. I'm also going to remove any lower leaves that maybe have some damage. A lot of times that base leaf will be damaged. Yeah, I mean, this really isn't worthwhile to keep, so I'll pull him off. I'll wash it. And I would be bunching these together, of course, but for the purpose of showing you. So I would have a bunch of 5 or 6 cut up, fresh cut, and into that water that has flower food in it. And then I just let them sit. Now, on a normal day when I'm not filming, I always harvest in the evening, let them sit overnight like this, and sell in the morning. This day is going to be different than pretty much any other day because I am trying to film the process for you. So we harvested very early in the morning. I'm going to let them sit inside for the middle part of the day, and then I'll probably put them out around 4 o'clock in the hopes to get that kind of dinner rush, people coming home from work that are driving by the stand. All right, guys, well, I got the stand all set up. I can already see that some people have started to drive slowly past the stand. I still need to put on Facebook and Instagram that we're open today so that people can know we're open for this season. And I just try to be really consistent. If I'm going to be open that day, and I try to open most days, I'm going to set up at 7 a.m. I always have about 4 to 5 bouquets out there. I find that 4 to 5 bouquets for me personally, they seem to sell through. I've tried kind of varying prices where I have all different price points at the stand. I've tried putting out 10 bouquets, but it's just really not quite right for me. It really seems like 5 bouquets at the stand early in the morning sell by midday. And that's great too, because then my flowers don't have to sit out there in the heat of the day. So I hope that's helpful. I saw a lot of questions in the last video that I did when I set up the flower stand more in midsummer about pricing. And pricing is so specific depending on where you live and kind of these micro pockets that you might find yourself. So if you're brand new to selling cut flowers, there's some great resources if you join the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers. There are price sheets there that are specific to where you live. Because say I live back in, I used to live in Western Pennsylvania in Pittsburgh. I would price my flowers totally different over there than I do here in an Amish farming community where it's very common for people to sell just about anything. I mean, whether it be flowers, vegetables. I'll sell fruit later in the season too. So it's very common here to have a farm stand. And I would say actually on just the road that I live on, probably about 25% of people on this road have a farm stand. And a lot of those people are selling cut flowers. So there's a lot of competition. I don't take that as a negative. I take it as a positive. People are coming out here for flowers and they have a lot of places to find flowers. But really, I don't think it really does too much of a benefit to talk about what I personally charge. I have to land at a price point where it's fair for my area, it makes sense for my area, it still makes the profit for me. And, you know, there's just so many things to take into consideration when it comes to pricing. Just find, you know, people that are working in your area. That's really the best resource. If you go somewhere like New York, California, Oregon, my flowers are probably going to be 5 times that much over there. So it really depends on where you live. One other question I saw a lot from that other video was about theft. And do I experience theft and what do I do about it? I experienced more theft at the very beginning of selling 6 years ago, and it seems to have decreased over the years. I'm not really sure why that is. I'm not really sure why that is, to be honest. Maybe some of you maybe have a theory that you could share with me, but it seemed like when I was getting a lot of theft there in the first year, I used to sell in bunches of the same thing. So for instance, I mean, tulips today, that's a little bit of an exception. But for instance, I would sell maybe all Madame Butterfly snaps. For some reason, it seems like when I did that, things would get stolen more often. It seemed like less likely when I did mixed bouquets that people would steal. That's totally possible. That's just like a weird random coincidence, but it did seem to happen like that. I would say one thing too about theft is that our house is located very close to the road. You could probably see that from some of the footage. So I think it does kind of decrease, people feeling like no one's going to see them. I mean, if you're going to steal from me, a lot of people are going to see it. But I have an Amish friend who used to sell flowers, and she doesn't anymore because she just got stolen from all the time. But the way her house was set up is that she had a very long lane up to her Amish farm and many, many acres. So, for her, now she actually sells to a nursery who then sells her cut flowers. So, I mean, it is something to take into consideration. I have verbiage on my box like, thanks so much for your honesty. Thanks for supporting, no spray flower farming. But, if someone's going to steal from me at the end of the day, I just have to see it as maybe they really needed those flowers. And the crazy thing that usually happens is maybe somebody steals a bouquet from me on a Monday, and then on a Friday, somebody pays double. So I don't worry about it too much, but it is something to think about, and maybe think about what your setup is, especially like I say with my Amish friend. It's really not something she can do. Her property is just too far away from the stand for her to feel safe. Well, guys, the sun is shining. Oh my gosh, it feels so awesome. It's so glorious out here, isn't it, guys? Well, no matter what you're getting around to today, whether it be gardening, harvesting flowers, selling flowers, sowing seeds, I want to wish you just an absolutely wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.